We're back with another edition of 10-Minute Misconduct, where we go through all of the happenings with the Toronto Maple Leafs in the past week, maybe look ahead, and discuss some of the topics that are surrounding the team at the moment. So, Frankie, let's look back at the past week. They had 3 games. They win 2 of them. I actually thought their best game was the game that they lost against Tampa. I didn't think they played particularly well against Columbus, and I thought they were terrible against Chicago and ended up pulling out a win, which is a sign of a good team. Even when you don't have your A game, you're still able to pull out a win. But any thoughts from the past week that stuck out for you?
Well, it's I guess the first thing we can look at is the goals against average, right? This is everything kind of starts to plateau a bit here into December, going into the new year, and we kind of expected it. I think a lot of it is, we can look at players not not being in the lineup, or we can look at pairings and lines that are all over the place. But you know what? Tampa had the same thing as well, right? So it's really a testament to some depth. We saw some guys playing their first NHL games. So we saw Rubens come up, as well as Alex Steves. Not really much you can expect other than just seeing what they have and what they can contribute in a limited role. I thought Rubens was okay, better than Holl. I mean, anything was better than Holl. But it's I've said it many times on our pod. I want to see what we have in the pipeline versus these waiver pickups and signing guys like 750K deals and these kind of like these rotating veterans. We need to see what we have in the lineup and in the pipeline. And Rubens is a good story because he actually at least signed him to an East Coast contract. I don't see many of those. He wasn't I don't believe he was a draft pick. He was a walk on, first ever Latvian player. Worked his way up the system. 6'5", steady defender, which was nice. It was actually nice to see. So at least you have some type of depth coming up the pipeline. And the thinking is too, if they do trade one of Holl or Dermott, at least what you can and can't bring up as to kind of take over some of those minutes. So that was pretty encouraging to see. Happy to see Mrazek back. I thought he was, on all intents and purposes, made some pretty big saves in a pretty wacky game in a high scoring affair against Chicago. It's really tough, only because how remember the whole thing where if the Leafs had like somebody like Freddie in net, but they would play totally different if the backup was in. I want to see them get out of that mold, knowing that if Campbell's in net, they play one way, and now Mrazek or Wall is in net, they play another. I'd really like to see some consistency on the defensive side. And that's going to be interesting now going into the Western trip versus Calgary. Sorry, Edmonton, not Calgary
Not
anymore.
Calgary, no.
Vancouver and Seattle. How that's going to play, because I think they're a great road team, and I think they play a very simple road style when they go out. So I'm hoping that they can tighten things up out west, and then come in for the stretch here for Christmas. So that's pretty much what what I've noticed for the week.
So let's go with mentioned the defensive game. You mentioned Justin Holl. You mentioned the goals against average. Goals against average has been up these past few games. They're allowing a lot more high danger chances. They really went into this year dependent on that Muzzin Hall pairing, which was very good last year. And then going into the expansion draft, they left a good player like Jared McCann unprotected to protect Justin Holl because they were going to depend on him this year. And now that pairing, which they use in high leverage situations against other teams' top lines, is basically getting caved in and not playing well. And you see Justin Holl in particular lacking a lot of confidence. What did they do from here? Because right now you cannot play that pair against other teams' top players right now. And you can mix it up. And this is why I say they should not make any trades where any of their defensemen are going out unless they're bringing another guy in, because they need that depth for injuries, but they've got a couple guys that aren't playing their best either. Even we can blame Hall all we want. Muzzin has not been that great this year at all. He's 33 now, maybe slowing down. Might be time to give some of those tough assignments to other guys, but who are you going to give it to? You don't want to give it to young guys like Liljegren, Sandin. They're doing so well on the third pair. And then Riley and Brody, Riley, I want him in offensive situations. I'm not the biggest fan of his defensive game. So they're in a bit of a pickle here.
See, and this is why I was saying, this is why the Sandin injury hurts more than anything. Sandin probably was one of the most, if not their most consistent defenseman, who's I thought was having a breakout year on both sides of the puck. But it allowed you to move those pairings around where at least Holl would have a safety net. Holl obviously, is not the best puck mover out of the zone, making the first pass, and at least playing a guy like Sandin could really get them out of trouble a lot like that. Muzzin's been having a lot of difficulty with that. And when your safety net is supposed to be Muzzin, when sometimes he's actually playing worse than Holl, is not good. It's not a recipe for success. The fact that they've been this good with that pairing should be a wake-up call to Dubas to say, hey, you know what? I think I know where we're going to spend our first-round pick this year, or a prospect, because it has to be a defenseman. It absolutely has to be a top 4, 5 defense. And I know it's like saying, oh, well, who's out there? Like, it doesn't matter. Like that's the target, because that's the biggest hole right now.
So what do they do with Holl, Frank? Because he doesn't even look like an NHL caliber defenseman, not even bottom pair right now. He's playing so poorly. And you got to get his confidence back up. So if you take him out of the lineup, that may not do very, very good for him.
So the only thing, Joel,
you're the coach. Like, what would you do in that situation? You want to build the guy back up, but at the same time, he's struggling so much.
So if it's me, I look at it one of two ways. Wherever I move Holl, it can hurt Liljegren's development, because Liljegren is the guy you fall back on to be what Holl was last year. Liljegren's playing some penalty killing minutes. He's playing some good 5-on-5 minutes. He's not playing power play. So essentially it's what Holl was last year. They have him playing with Muzzin, and every time he's been playing with Muzzin, it's been a lot easier on Muzzin because Liljegren's talent to get the puck out of the zone and make the first pass. So Muzzin's been less noticeable, which is a good thing, playing with Liljegren. The issue with that is now Holl is now playing on the third pairing, which is not where he should be playing, but sheltered minutes. So his minute count is down playing on the third line. But the problem with that is now you're having a rotating third pairing. So now I believe Dermott might be back on tomorrow. So now his pairing might be with Dermott. He's never played with Dermott a lot, so now he's got to get used to a new partner. And then if Dermott rolls out, then now Dahlstrom might be in, or Viega, like the guys that they called up, or Rubens. Like you're not developing any chemistry. Unfortunately, the only chemistry he has is with Muzzin, but that's not working. So it has to be sheltered minutes for Holl on the right situations against the right line. You can match him against a top line of another team. Can you imagine now? Remember the whole thing last year with Holl shut down McDavid? That's not happening anymore. So no. I don't think they can have Holl play against McDavid at any point on Tuesday night. So
I feel bad for him because
I know
the guy can play. Like he's totally an NHL player. He's in his own head. He looks indecisive when the puck's on his stick, and he looks a step or two slower than he did last year. It's probably 80%, 90% in between the ears that he's got to fix it.
Oh, 100%.
He's not a bad defenseman. People want to make fun of him and rag on him. Last year, he was solid. Like, let's call it fair, right?
Absolutely. But the funny thing is, too, is that he actually holds the most value between him and Dermott, because he has the history of playing top 4 minutes. He's 6'2", and he's a right-handed shot.
And only making $2 million.
Correct. So, you might get a similar guy back from him and a pick or a prospect, but it's just not working anymore. You know what he is, and I'm sure he has value in a change of scenery somewhere else. So that's probably what it's ended up being.
Let's switch gears for just a sec. The power play's on fire. Finally, they fixed it. Knock on wood. I don't want to ruin things too much, but this coincides kind of with Mitch Marner being out of the lineup. I want to read you a stat here that I saw that I found that was interesting. So the first 24 games of the year with Mitch Marner in the lineup, Nylander had 8 points on the power play. Matthews had 7 points on the power play. Tavares had 5 points on the power play. In the last 5 games, a stretch of only 5 games, Nylander 6 points, Matthews 7 points, Tavares 4 points. Pretty much the same amount of point total on the power play in the last 5 games as they had in the first 24 games on the power play. I love Mitch Marner. He's a great player, but perhaps when he comes back, is this something that we might actually have to consider leaving him off that top power play unit?
I'm a full supporter of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've always coached like that. Although you get people barking in your ear, and I'm sure he's going to be crying to daddy that he won't be on the first power play unit. So, but in my honest opinion, and don't forget now too, Kasha is taking Spezza's role.
That's right.
On the power play. So now that's another guy, another option that would have been on that first power play, which was clicking as well before he got suspended.
Yeah,
so,
I love Spezza on that top power play unit.
Right. So
he does it. He's able to pass. He's able to shoot. He's able to carry the puck in the zone.
And the difference between him and Kasha is Kasha played the opposite role where he's the net presence guy and Tavares moves to the outside. So they have some options, which is good. These are good problems to have. One thing I heard today, which was interesting, that whenever Marner's on the power play, their set plays, like it's almost like they're going for a perfection play, and they're forcing the like whether it's the high tip,
high slot tip,
or something like that, or
cross seam pass,
seam, correct. That it has to be that play. Whereas you take him out of the equation, and they're just they're setting up on one side, but they're not really set plays that drives through Marner. Now you have different options with, Nylander scored on his off wing the other night. Matthews off a rebound. Like, these are simple power play setups. And now you're actually, the best part about this is that you're making the penalty killers guess. That's the goal of a successful power play, is to guess who's going to get that puck next. When Marner has it, we know where it's going, right? So, we all want it a certain way, but we all know at the end of the day, he's going to be right back there because of the money he makes and the influence on the team. So,
yeah, I like how there's a lot more movement on the power play. In one power play, you'll see Matthews on his off wing, you'll see him on his strong side. Like, there's a lot of interchangeable movement, which makes the penalty killers, like you said, guessing a lot. And they've got certain plays set up for when they're in certain situations. So when Matthews is on his off wing, there's a certain play or a couple plays they have in mind. I think that's worked. Last thing I want to touch upon, because I know we're running out of time. They're starting to get a couple guys back. Mikheyev looks like he's going to draw back into the lineup. What do you think the lineup's going to look like when they start to get more and more of these guys back out? I know Richie didn't make the trip out west. He's feeling under the weather. Not COVID related, but what do you think?
Well, I love the fact that Mikheyev is supposedly back, and I've been waiting to see this third line of Mikheyev, Kampf, and Kasha. That is one hell of a third line that can skate, can forecheck, that's defensively responsible, and you know what? They're probably going to put some points on the board too. Probably not what Mikheyev wants to hear because he wanted a top 6 role, but hey, listen, their best line right now is Kerfoot, Tavares, and Nylander, arguably the most consistent, I'd say. You can't move Kerfoot from that line. I can't believe I'm saying that because I've never really been a big Kerfoot guy. He's just always been kind of bland to me, but he is a nice compliment. He's a nice compliment to Tavares and Nylander. And like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So looks like they're probably going to run a rotating first line right winger. So you have Bunting, Matthews, and right now Cassius there. They're probably going to rotate him and Simmons depending on the game script. But that's probably what it's going to look like. Your second line stays intact. And they're going to run Mikheyev, Kampf, and probably Simmons on the third line, unless they move Engvall up. I saw a line, the lineup stated where they had Engvall on the wing, and you have Alex Steves centering the fourth line. Don't know how much they're going to play.
Okay, but Spezza's going to be back in like 3 games. So let's say
let's
assume Spezza's back in.
So, if we're going to assume Spezza's back in, then that's easy. Spezza goes right to the top line because that's where he was playing before he got suspended. And that which moves Simmons down to the fourth line, which is more appropriate. So you keep intact that third line, Mikheyev, Kampf, and Cash, because Matthews and Bunting can handle the first line with Spezza. So and he's not playing 20 minutes a night. So him and Simmons can probably rotate on that first line.
It'll definitely be interesting to see when all these guys get back, especially Marner. That'll push guys down a couple pegs as well. I'm looking forward to this week. I always like and enjoy when the Leafs go out west to Western Canada. Um, and the games are at 9, not 10, so it's a little bit more manageable. And the Vancouver game, I believe that's scheduled for 4 o'clock local time over there, which will definitely make the locals very, very, very happy.
That's a shame. Well, they're 4-0 right now, so they at
That
least
is
they're
true.
trying a little bit.
That's true. And of course, we catch them while they're red hot. So that'll be a good game. It's always good watching the Leafs play the Canucks in Vancouver on a Saturday at 7 p.m. our local time. Anyways, we'll be back next week to talk about it all and see how their first trip to Seattle went in Leafs history. So we'll recoup next week. All right, Frankie. Thanks
Sounds
for
good.
tuning in,
Sounds good.
everybody.
And I know we're a little short-handed today, but we'll be back on the power play next week with Bobby Bottles.
We don't need him anyways. We don't need any Vancouver fans to spoil the party for us.
Awesome.
Thanks everyone for listening. Like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff.